The moment I found her real passport, the woman I'd loved for 30 years became a stranger. Sofia Petrov, wanted in 3 countries for fraud, and the $2.7 million missing from our accounts suddenly made perfect sense. I stood in our bedroom, the hidden compartment behind her dresser now empty except for this single damning document. A passport with her face but a completely different name. My hands trembled, not from fear but from a cold, crystallizing rage that seemed to freeze time around me. Just 4 hours earlier, I had returned early from my business trip to find our home methodically stripped of everything valuable. My rare coin collection worth over $300,000, gone. The artwork we'd collected over 3 decades, vanished. Even my father's vintage watch collection, more sentimental than valuable, taken. Our joint accounts had been drained to the last dollar, with large transfers dating back 3 weeks, carefully timed to avoid triggering fraud alerts. I sank onto our bed, the only piece of furniture she hadn't managed to sell off yet, and stared at the passport photo. The same smile I'd woken up to for 30 years, the same eyes I'd gazed into while promising forever. But the name, Sofia Petrov, born in Belarus, not Catherine Miller from Minnesota. My phone rang, breaking the haunting silence of our half-empty house. It was Marcus, my banker, returning my frantic call. "James, I've traced what I can," he said, his voice grave. The funds were moved through 6 different accounts before landing in an offshore bank in Cyprus. "I'm sorry, but without court orders, that's where the trail ends for us." "And the timing?" I asked, my voice unnaturally steady. "When did the transfers begin?" "First one was exactly 1 day after you mentioned to Catherine about your trip to Tokyo." The precision of it all was almost admirable. She had waited until I was safely on another continent, in a different time zone, to begin dismantling our life together. How many times had she kissed me goodbye at airports, knowing she was simply waiting for the right opportunity? What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have discovered despite her meticulous planning, was that I wasn't just a successful business consultant. 20 years ago, before building my legitimate career, I had worked in financial fraud investigation, and I had maintained connections and skills that would now serve a purpose I never imagined. I moved through our half-empty home, methodically searching for any other clues she might have left behind. In the kitchen drawer, I found a phone bill showing international calls to a number in Eastern Europe, calls made only when I was traveling. In the shredder, fragments of documents I carefully pieced together revealed wire transfer confirmations with account numbers she'd been careless enough to dispose of at home. My mind raced with memories, now cast in a disturbing new light. Her reluctance to visit my family in Denver, the way she always handled our finances, her insistence that we never needed updated wills or estate planning. Had anything been real? Had I been nothing but a decades-long con, the ultimate mark? I walked into my office, the only room relatively untouched. My computer was still there, likely because she couldn't access the encrypted files I maintained for work. I sat down and began what I knew would be the most important investigation of my life. Within an hour, I had confirmed what the passport suggested. Sofia Petrov had been implicated in multiple investment scams across Eastern Europe before disappearing completely 32 years ago, right around the time Catherine Miller had appeared in my life. I was still compiling information when I heard a car in the driveway. Through the window, I watched as she emerged from a rental car, looking nervously at our home. She hadn't expected me back for 3 more days. The element of surprise was now my only advantage. My phone vibrated with a message from another contact. "Found something. She's not working alone. Call me." I watched her approach the front door, key in hand, her expression not that of a triumphant thief but of someone frightened, looking repeatedly over her shoulder. As the front door opened, I made a decision that would determine everything that followed. I closed the passport and placed it in my pocket. If I was going to understand the full scope of this betrayal, I needed to see how far she would take the lies when confronted with her partially emptied home and my unexpected return. Because one thing was already clear. The comfortable life we had built together was simply an elaborate house of cards, and what would emerge from its collapse depended entirely on what I discovered next. I heard her gasp as she entered our half-empty living room. Her footsteps halted, then quickened anxiously toward the kitchen. I remained in my office, silently watching through the cracked door as she frantically checked behind painting frames and inside hollow decorative books, places where something important might still be hidden. "Looking for something?" I asked, stepping into view. She spun around, face draining of color. "James, you're home early." 30 years of marriage had taught me every micro-expression of her face. The widened eyes weren't just surprise, they were panic. "Flight got canceled," I lied smoothly, gauging her reaction. "What happened to our furniture, Catherine? Or should I call you Sophia?" Her composure faltered for only a split second, so brief anyone else might have missed it. But I saw the recognition flash in her eyes before she recovered. "Sophia? What are you talking about?" She approached me, arms outstretched. "James, we've been robbed. I just came home and found everything like this." I was about to call the police. I stepped back from her embrace. "Interesting timing for a robbery, right after you emptied our accounts of nearly $3 million. Her performance was masterful. The shock, the confusion, the hurt in her eyes. If I hadn't seen the evidence myself, I might have believed her. "I don't understand," she whispered. "What are you saying?" I pulled out my phone, showing her the bank statements Marcus had sent me. 3 weeks of systematic transfers, all requiring your signature and verification codes. A rather thorough robbery, wouldn't you say? She sank into one of the few remaining chairs, something shifting in her demeanor. Not surrender, but recalculation. "I can explain," she finally said, her voice different somehow. The Midwestern accent slightly faded. "I'm sure you can," I replied. "You've had 30 years to practice." Before she could respond, my phone rang. It was Alan Davis, a former colleague from my fraud investigation days, who now worked as a private investigator. "I need to take this," I said, stepping into the hallway. "Tell me you found something," I said quietly into the phone. "More than something," Alan replied. "Your wife's been making regular payments to a man named Viktor Kozlov for at least 15 years. Monthly transfers, always the same amount, always to different accounts." "Blackmail?" I asked. "Looks that way." "And James, this Kozlov character is bad news, connected to organized crime in Belarus. If he's got leverage on your wife, this goes deeper than simple fraud." I glanced back at Catherine, Sophia, sitting rigidly in the chair, watching me with calculation in her eyes. "Send me everything you have," I said before hanging up. When I returned, she spoke before I could. "There are things about my past you don't know," she admitted. "Things I've been running from for a very long time. Like being Sofia Petrov? Like the investment scams in Belarus?" She flinched. "How much do you know?" "Enough to put you in prison for the rest of your life," I said coldly. "What I don't know is whether anything between us was ever real." Something broke in her carefully maintained facade, a flash of what looked like genuine pain. "Some of it was real, James. More than you might believe. And the money? Was that real too? Our life savings just vanished?" She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "It wasn't me. It was my hands, my signatures. But I didn't have a choice." "Kozlov," I said, watching her face crumple. "How do you know that name?" she whispered, genuine fear flashing in her eyes. "I'm not exactly who you thought I was either," I replied, the irony not lost on me. "Before consulting, I worked in financial fraud investigation. I still have contacts." For a moment we sat in silence, two strangers who had shared a bed for 30 years, both realizing how little they truly knew each other. "He found me 16 years ago," she finally said. "Threatened to expose who I really was, have me deported, imprisoned. I've been paying him ever since. But last month he demanded everything, said he needed one final payment." Her eyes met mine, pleading. "I thought once I paid, we could start over. I was going to tell you everything." I wanted to believe her. Part of me, the part that remembered every anniversary, every shared joy and sorrow, desperately wanted to find truth in her words. "If you're being blackmailed," I said carefully, "why not come to me? Why destroy everything we built?" "Because Kozlov doesn't just want money," she replied, her voice barely audible. "He wants you too." "Me? I've never even met the man. But you know things, James. Things about high-value financial transfers, security systems. Your client list includes 3 of the largest private banks in the country." She swallowed hard. "He doesn't just want our money. He's planning something bigger, and he wants your expertise." As the implications sank in, my phone buzzed with a text from Alan. Kozlov landed in NYC yesterday. He's here. I looked at the woman before me, a stranger and yet still somehow my wife, and realized we were both in far more danger than I had imagined. If you found yourself drawn into my story, I'd be truly grateful if you'd like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. This is only the beginning of a truth I never expected to uncover. Viktor Kozlov was in the country. The man who had been bleeding my wife dry for 16 years, the man who had finally pushed her to empty our accounts, was now on American soil. The threat had suddenly become tangible, immediate. How does Kozlov know about my clients? I asked, studying Sofia's face for any sign of deception. I didn't tell him, she insisted, meeting my gaze. He has other sources, people inside the banks. He's been planning this for years, James. I was just his way to you. The terrible irony wasn't lost on me. For 3 decades, I'd believed I was the one who had chosen her, pursued her, won her heart. Now I was forced to consider that our entire relationship had been engineered for a longer con than I could have imagined. You never loved me, I said, the words cutting like glass even as I spoke them. Something flickered across her face. Pain. Regret. I couldn't be sure anymore. It wasn't supposed to happen that way, she said quietly. When we met, I was still running from my past, creating a new identity. You were just convenient. I flinched at the word. 30 years reduced to convenience. But then something changed, she continued, her eyes fixed on her hands. That Christmas in Vermont, when we got snowed in at that little cabin. No electricity, no distractions, just us. Do you remember? I remembered. Our 3rd year together. 3 days cut off from the world, talking by candlelight, learning each other's stories, or what I had thought were our stories. You told me about your childhood dog, she said. How you buried him under the apple tree and read to him for weeks after. No one had ever shown me that kind of tenderness, that capacity for love. Her voice cracked slightly. That's when the act became complicated. I wanted to believe her. Even now, with everything crumbling around us, some part of me wanted to find truth in her words. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Alan. A photograph taken at JFK Airport showed a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, his face hard and angular. The caption read, Kozlov, arriving yesterday, known associates in photo 2. I swiped to the next image and felt my blood freeze. There, walking several paces behind Kozlov, was a man I recognized, Robert Cantrell, Senior Vice President at First Maritime Bank, one of my biggest clients. He's already inside, I muttered, showing Sofia the photo. Her face paled. Then we don't have much time. The final transfer was supposed to happen tomorrow. When he discovers I've disappeared with the money instead of delivering it. What money? I interrupted. You said you transferred everything to him. She shook her head. Not everything. I sent most of it to accounts he can see, but I diverted the last $1 million to a separate account he doesn't know about. It was going to be our fresh start. Our fresh start, I repeated, the words hollow. After stealing my life savings, I was going to tell you everything once we were safe, she insisted, desperation edging into her voice. I've spent 16 years trying to find a way out from under his thumb. This was my only chance. Our only chance. I stood and paced the room, my mind racing through possibilities, evaluations, plans. The investigator in me was assembling facts, while the husband, whatever that now meant, was grappling with emotions I couldn't fully process. If what you're saying is true, I said finally, Kozlov will come after both of us. You for the diverted money, and me for whatever scheme he's planning with the banks. She nodded, her composure cracking further. James, there's something else you need to know about Kozlov. He doesn't just blackmail people. When he's done with them, she didn't need to finish the sentence. I pulled out my phone and called Alan back. I need a secure location, I said without preamble. And I need to know exactly what Kozlov is planning with First Maritime. Already working on it, Alan replied. But James, there's something else you should know about your wife. The money trail I followed. It doesn't match the profile of someone being blackmailed. I glanced at Sofia, who was now standing by the window, scanning the street outside with practiced vigilance. What do you mean? Some of those payments to Kozlov over the years? They look more like profit sharing than extortion. Until about 2 years ago, when the pattern changed. The implication hit me like a physical blow, not a victim, but a partner, until something changed. I ended the call and turned to face her. You weren't just paying him off, were you? You were working with him. Sofia's shoulders sagged, but when she turned, her eyes held a defiance I hadn't seen before. Yes, she admitted. At first, he found me when I was at my lowest, offered protection and a new identity. In return, I helped him with certain financial arrangements. You were partners, I said flatly, until I wanted out, until I realized what he was really planning. That's when the blackmail started. She approached me, stopping just short of touching distance. 2 years ago, I discovered he was targeting your client banks for something massive. That's when I knew I had to break free, to protect you. I stared at this woman, this stranger, trying to reconcile 30 years of memories with the person now standing before me. Had she really turned against her criminal partner to protect me, or was this just another manipulation? Before I could respond, headlights swept across our living room as a car pulled into our driveway. Sofia's face went pale. He's found us, she whispered. James, whatever you believe about me, believe this. If Kozlov gets what he wants, people will die. I pulled Sofia away from the window and killed the lights. Years of investigative work had taught me to prepare for contingencies, and now those instincts took over. Back door, I whispered, guiding her through the darkened house with practiced ease. There's a neighbor's fence panel that's loose. We can cut through their yard to the next street. How do you know that? She asked, matching my hushed tone. Because I've always been more careful than you realized, I replied, retrieving a small go-bag from behind a false panel in the pantry. I investigate financial criminals for a living. I don't advertise my escape routes. As we slipped through the back door, I heard car doors closing in the front. Voices, at least 3 men, approached the house. We moved silently through the darkness, past the edge of our property to the loose fence panel I'd maintained as a precaution for years. Once through and into the adjacent street, I led Sofia to a modest sedan parked 2 blocks away, a vehicle registered to one of my alter egos, maintained for investigations that required discretion. You've been preparing for something like this, Sofia observed as I unlocked the car. Not this exactly, I admitted, starting the engine and pulling away without headlights until we reached the main road. But in my line of work, contingencies matter. 20 minutes later, we were checked into a roadside motel under false names, paid for with cash. I placed a call to Alan from a burner phone I kept in the go-bag. They searched the house, Alan confirmed. 3 men. 1 matches Kozlov's profile. They didn't stay long once they realized you were gone. We need to know what they're planning at First Maritime, I said. Can you get to Cantrell? Working on it, Alan replied. But there's more. I've been digging into Sofia Petrov's history. James, she wasn't just some small-time fraudster. Before she disappeared, she was Kozlov's financial architect. Every major scheme he ran had her fingerprints on it. I glanced at Sofia, who sat on the edge of the motel bed, her posture alert despite the exhaustion in her eyes. 3 decades together, and I was only now seeing glimpses of the person she might really be. And the change 2 years ago, I asked, when the payments shifted to blackmail? That tracks with a failed operation in Singapore, Alan said. Kozlov lost millions. Word was someone tipped off authorities. I ended the call and turned to Sofia. You sabotaged his Singapore operation, I stated. Not a question, but a realization. She met my gaze steadily. Yes, it was supposed to be my exit strategy. I provided information to Interpol through anonymous channels, enough to shut down the operation, but not enough to implicate myself. A bitter smile touched her lips. I underestimated him. He discovered what I'd done, and everything changed. Why risk it, after all those years working with him? Because the Singapore job wasn't just about money, she said, her voice hardening. There would have been casualties. That crossed a line I wasn't willing to cross. A moral line, I asked skeptically, after decades of fraud. Financial crimes hurt people's wallets, she replied sharply. What Kozlov planned in Singapore, what he's planning now with First Maritime, will hurt people physically. I never signed up for that. My phone buzzed with a text from Alan. Cantrell confirmed hack of First Maritime scheduled tomorrow, targeting Federal Reserve transfers. Potential chaos. Sofia read the message over my shoulder. It's worse than I thought, she murmured. If he disrupts Federal Reserve transfers through First Maritime, it won't just be one bank affected. It could trigger a cascading failure across multiple financial institutions, creating market panic he can exploit, I finished, understanding dawning. But he needs someone with inside knowledge of the bank's security protocols. He needs you, Sofia confirmed. Your consulting firm designed their firewall architecture 3 years ago. You know the vulnerabilities that aren't in any documentation. The gravity of the situation shifted my focus from our fractured marriage to the immediate threat. Whatever Sofia had done, whatever lies she had told over 30 years, preventing Kozlov's attack had to take priority. I have connections at the FBI, I said, reaching for the phone. Sofia's hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. No, if you bring in federal authorities, Kozlov has contingencies, dead man switches, the first sign of official involvement, and he'll trigger a smaller attack immediately. You're asking me to trust you, I said incredulously. After everything, her eyes, the same eyes I'd gazed into for 30 years, held mine without wavering. Yes, she said simply, because despite what you now think of me, I am not a killer, and I will not let Kozlov become one using my husband as his tool. My husband. The words hung between us, complicated by everything we'd learned about each other in the past 24 hours. We need a plan, I finally said, neither accepting nor rejecting her claim on our marriage. Kozlov doesn't know what I know about his operation. That's our only advantage. Sofia straightened, something shifting in her demeanor. A glimpse, perhaps, of the strategic mind that had once made her valuable to a man like Kozlov. We have one other advantage, she said. He still thinks I'm afraid of him. He won't expect me to walk right through his front door. For the first time since discovering the empty house and the hidden passport, I saw something in her that resonated with the woman I had loved. Courage in the face of devastating odds. What exactly are you suggesting? I asked. A counterplay, she replied, determination hardening her features. One final con, with Kozlov as the mark. I entered the Westgate Hotel's gleaming lobby, dressed in the tailored suit from my go bag. Mr. Cantrell sent me, I told the receptionist. Mr. Kozlov is expecting me. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse suite. Kozlov sat at a glass desk, silver hair immaculate, eyes cold and calculating. 2 security men flanked him, their jackets bulging slightly at the waist. James Miller, Kozlov said, his accent thick but precise. Finally we meet. I've known your wife much longer. So I've discovered, I replied, maintaining an outward calm. He gestured to a chair. Please, sit. We have much to discuss about First Maritime Bank. I remained standing. Before we discuss anything, was any of it real? Did you place her in my path from the beginning? A thin smile crossed his lips. Sofia was always ambitious. When she fled Belarus, I helped her create Catherine Miller, gave her a fresh start in America. He leaned forward. But meeting you, that was opportunity, not planning. You made yourself valuable much later. And now you need me to help you rob the Federal Reserve, I stated. Yes. Tomorrow's transfer represents a unique vulnerability. With your knowledge of First Maritime's systems and Cantrell's access codes, we can redirect the funds during the transfer window. What about the collateral damage, the market panic, the people who will lose everything? He waved dismissively. Markets recover. This is simply business. It's terrorism, I corrected. And I won't be part of it. Kozlov's face hardened. You don't have a choice. Your wife has stolen my money. Cooperation is your only option for survival. My comfortable life was a lie. You've already taken everything that mattered. Not everything, came Sofia's voice from the elevator as she stepped into the penthouse. Kozlov's men reached for their weapons, but he halted them with a raised hand. Sofia, you've returned what belongs to me. Wise decision. I've returned nothing, she replied, standing beside me. I'm here to end this. And how do you plan to accomplish that? You have nothing to negotiate with. Sofia smiled. The same smile I'd seen countless times across dinner tables, but now carrying different weight. I have the Singapore files, Victor. All of them, including your communications with government officials. The color drained from Kozlov's face. You're bluffing. Those files were destroyed. I kept copies, insurance. They've been in a secure location for 2 years, with instructions to release them to Interpol should anything happen to me or James. Releasing those files would implicate you as well. Kozlov recovered. You were part of every operation. Yes, she admitted. And I'm prepared to face those consequences if it means stopping you now. The revelation struck me profoundly. She was willing to sacrifice her freedom to prevent his attack. Walk away from First Maritime. Leave us alone, Sofia continued firmly. Or those files go public, and we all face whatever comes next. Together. For a long moment, the penthouse was silent, except for the faint hum of the city below. I watched Kozlov calculate his options. You've changed, Sofia, he finally said, disappointment evident. You were once my greatest asset. I found something worth more than assets, she replied, standing firmly by my side. Kozlov studied us both, then slowly nodded. The first maritime operation is cancelled. Your lives are your own. His eyes hardened. But understand this. Our paths never cross again. 24 hours later, we watched news reports confirm Robert Cantrell's arrest for attempted cybersecurity breaches. Kozlov had disappeared, leaving his American connection to take the fall. He'll rebuild elsewhere, Sofia said quietly. Men like Kozlov always do. The money's still gone, I observed. Our house, our life. Not all of it, she admitted. The account he didn't know about. Enough to start over, if that's what we decide. If, I repeated, the word heavy between us. She turned to face me. I won't ask your forgiveness, James. 30 years of lies can't be erased with an apology. But somewhere along the way, Catherine became more real to me than Sofia ever was. I studied her face. The face I'd woken up beside for 3 decades. Lined now with age and truth finally spoken. I don't know if I can trust you again, I said honestly. I know, she replied. But for the first time, we're seeing each other without disguises. That's something real to build from, if you want to. As I considered her words, I realized a profound truth. The woman I had married was neither Catherine Miller nor Sofia Petrov. She was the complex, flawed person sitting before me now, finally revealed after 30 years of hiding. I don't know what happens next, I admitted, but I think I'd like to find out who you really are, who we might be, without the lies between us. She reached across the space between us and took my hand. For the first time in our 30 years together, I felt I was truly touching the woman I had married. If this story resonated with you, I'd be truly grateful if you'd like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Sometimes, the most profound truths emerge only after everything we believed has been stripped away.